everybody. Welcome to Alex and DJ Watch It Doc. I'm DJ. That's Alex. And we're happy to have you. This week we... I never know when you're going to come in. You surprise me every week. This week we watched Tickled, which is a documentary... I got to say, maybe my favorite documentary we've watched so far. It was about a journalist, David Ferrier, who was looking into just a whimsical story about a competitive tickling league, and it turned into this sordid tale of one man who was running this scheme, this tickling league, but was using it to extort people. It had undertones of homoeroticism, but he was homophobic himself. It was insane. David Damato is one of the greatest villains I've seen in a documentary or film, period. So here's my first question for you, Alex. You ready?
Yeah, am I allowed to talk now?
You may.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, hit me, baby.
Did any part of David Damato's scheme, this, multiple decade-long scheme, his commitment to this tickling fetish, even while he was in prison, still running this operation from prison, were you in awe at all of his commitment to this tickling fetish and this tickling sport that he had set up? And I'm using heavy air quotes on sports.
Am I in awe of his commitment? Yeah, I don't know if that's what I was
I don't think I've been...
When I was saying, I wouldn't necessarily, if I was able to see him today, I don't know if I'd give him a high five. Hey, way to commit to that one, buddy. That's decades.
You'd have to give him a high five from here to heaven or hell, because he died in 2017.
That steps on my later question, which is, where is he now? Yeah, I know that. I know that part. We're going to get to that. As far as his commitment to, I think it's a drive. I think clearly he had a fire in him that was ignited by bullying. So... that'll take you right to your grave. I was watching him. I immediately thought of, people who have also bullied many people and used their power. And I thought of from our point of view, let's say a comedy club owner who had bullied people through the years and used his power. And it comes from the same place. From what I understand, he was bullied. It's just a cycling of abuse because he never really dealt with it himself. Same with David. I mean, it seems like he just never dealt with it, never forgave, and just preyed on innocent people, jocks in particular, right?
Yeah. Which is a weird thing because he wasn't a jock. He didn't have the stature.
Well, that's a very interesting thing that you should mention. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to necessarily stop you, but I mean, if the truth is that
stop me.
I read his obituary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We got it right here. Let's take a look. Apparently, he played hockey, a goalie, moving into university.
This makes so much sense. You're not a hockey guy. Goalies are the weirdest guys on the team. Yeah. Always. Yeah. Of course, he was a goalie. But what, he played in university? He was a college goalie?
It seems to be, yeah. He went to a university and he played there.
I don't know. The guy falsified multiple documents, like he stole identities from dead people. I'm not believing that he played goalie. You can write anything in your obituary.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Do you have any bad memories of being tickled?
Do I have any bad memories of being tickled? No, but I do think... tickling is one of those weird things that it's funny that you laugh when you're in that much pain. It's like your body is betraying you. You're trying to tell somebody you're in immense pain and your body won't let you convey it in the proper way. It's making you do the opposite. It's making you convey joy. So I don't have any specific memories, but definitely I can remember as a child, I have 2 older sisters. I definitely was abused via tickling at some point, but I think those are probably deep in the recesses of my brain that I don't need to unpack that. They're deep for a reason.
Oh yeah, mine aren't deep.
No? What happened to you?
Well, they run deep, but they're also right there at it's like an iceberg. It's both. You can still see them. I had 2 older brothers, so I was naturally bullied, tortured, tormented, whatever you want to call them. My brother would hold both my arms. Hold my wrists up above, and then he would use his chin to get in there, tickle my ribs.
Was he old enough to have stubble?
Really kind of, Yeah, he's like 9 years older than me. I mean, this guy's. It was like just shooting fish in a barrel. And then, he would laugh and drool.
Oh my God.
One time he was like hanging over me, like laughing, like as he's holding me down, and drooled right into my mouth.
Oh my goodness, that's horrific.
So no tickling fetishes for me, thanks.
Oh my God. Oh geez, yeah, that's horrible. I can see how that would be traumatic.
It's awful. Why'd you bring it up?
Here's a question for you. This David Damato, the ringleader of this tickling league, Jane O'Brien and what was the name before that? Terry Tickles before. He always used female monikers online because they're less threatening. It was smart of him. But he was in his private life, his personal life, he was a principal or vice principal and teacher at 8 schools in 10 years, which one of the journalists in the movie said is a huge red flag. Do you think his colleagues, teachers, and other principals and the students at these schools were creeped out by him? Do you think they all sensed something was amiss with David Damato?
I wonder that because you look at him, and the guy's got a look, I'll tell you, as an older gentleman. I mean, you mentioned, you're the one who brought up his death. He died at 55. So he was younger than 55 when we saw him.
Yeah.
Now that guy looks like, something evil was in him that had eaten away at him and allowed him to start to enter decrepitude. He was, he looked villainous.
He did. He really did.
He looked like, I was thinking, it leads me into a question for you, which is, does he remind you of or what villainous character could he play in a movie? So does he remind? Could you think of him playing a villainous character? What would you think? Maybe a supervillain?
Like in a movie that already exists? Because he looks like the ringleader of a nefarious tickling league. If I had to, make a guy and what he would look like if he's running this weird ass sexual yet not sexual. I mean, yeah, I think he was definitely a villain in a weirdly sexual scheme. Whatever the movie is, he had that deviant sexual energy, and I know that's because I knew him to be that when he was introduced in the movie, but he had weird, latent, I'm in my room looking at weird shit for too many hours a day kind of energy.
Yeah, a little bit like if you're, if it's one of these kinds of films like Zodiac or something, like a Zodiac killer hunt, where he's one of the doors that you knock on, and it's like, I think it might be him.
Exactly. Yeah, but I don't think he is the red herring. It is him. It's like, you know what I mean? In a movie, they'll show a guy like that, and then he ends up being innocent, but they wrongly persecute him or something. David Damato, he was that guy. Man, he had the look.
He had the look.
Do you think he was gay? Because he was so homophobic. That's how the whole documentary started. He attacked the journalist, David Ferrier, for being gay. And he's like, we're a heterosexual tickling league. Even though the videos were, blatantly homoerotic. A bunch of young guys tickling each other. It had definite overtones, not even undertones, overtones of, homoeroticism. Do you think he was fighting some part of himself? Do you think his dad didn't want him to be gay? Because his dad was this wealthy, powerful corporate lawyer in New York. I don't know about corporate, but lawyer in New York. Do you think there was something there, some repression happening on his part?
I'd be surprised if not. I'm in no position to necessarily judge these things, and I don't know whether. My assumption is you look at what they were doing when they were when they were shooting that moment where what is it, Jonathan Ivey, I think his name, was showing them what it looks like when you tickle somebody, and they had it slow motion with the music, and that went on for a while actually. That section of the film was lengthy and erotic, and and it was homoerotic for Ivey. That's what he was into. I assume. It looks fairly gay. This is even from the filmmaker who was gay. He sort of saw it as being, well, this looks pretty gay to me. Yeah. So I assume that if you're tickling men, I think that he was fighting against. He hated that part of himself, but then again he couldn't stop himself. He was addicted to this. So Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think it's a self-hater.
Do you think he was masturbating to these videos?
Well, let me think about it. Hold on,
As far as I can tell, I don't know what the purpose was.
Visual. I mean, I don't know. He was described as possibly asexual. Like, there are asexual people there, and it's that's kind of in a territory that I just don't know what are the motivations. I mean, it's just I could just say I think that's what it is, but that's just from my own point of view. I'm fairly, I'm hetero cis. Well, who am I to talk?
You're not allowed to talk, Alex. That was
No.
a trick question when I asked you. I'm like, you better not answer. That's what I was thinking in my head.
Yeah, I know not to answer questions now. Everything is a third degree. I will say this. I'm gonna throw this back at you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any fetishes yourself, and would you like to share them with us?
Well, this movie wasn't, that's the thing. Like, if we're talking about this as being a fetish, then we're saying that this was a sexual thing, and he was adamant that it wasn't. There was a guy they showed as a kind of like, a foray into this other guy's world who made tickling videos for fetish reasons. But this league, this sport that David Damato set up, ostensibly wasn't a fetish. It was supposed to just be,
Well, that's
you know what I
he's
mean?
saying. That's what he was saying, but it is. I mean, unless you want to say the fetish is power and control and that sort of thing, but yeah, I mean overall, tickling is a fetish. I mean, that was the concern people in that community were having about this film. That's like, we hope you don't mock us, and that's part of the reason he had that. He was trying to normalize it to show, here's Jonathan Ivey who's just enjoying a fetish. It's nothing scary. It's nothing, that was part of the reason for that scene.
Yeah. Well, I mean, did you watch the follow-up documentary? There was a mini one called The Tickle King. So
Yeah.
that one guy, it wasn't David Damato, but his right-hand man, I forget the guy's name, Kevin, I think. He was upset about that part in the movie because he was like, you were conflating that with what we do, but ours isn't sexual. That was. So they were really adamant that it wasn't sexual. But to answer your question about my own fetishes, yeah, I got fetishes.
Good. Second part of that question was, would you mind sharing them with us?
Yeah. Let me see here. What do I want to share that would be that would not make me uncomfortable afterwards, immediately when I'm editing it in a couple hours, going, why did I share that out loud? Here, I'll tell you one that I've never done, but that I would be interested in. The tickling stuff made me think of it. I think I'd like to be tied up.
Oh, is that right?
I think so. I think I'd like to cede control and power.
That makes sense. You seem like somebody who kind of is a little bit in control, so you like moments where it's taken away.
Yeah, I think it'd be enjoyable, but with my wife, I think a stranger would scare me. Even seeing that guy getting tied up, just knowing he was going to get tickled. I'm just going to go over to some guy's house and let him tie me up and assume all he's going to do is tickle me? No fucking way, dude.
Never, ever.
What
Never,
about you?
ever.
Fetishes?
Yeah, mine are privacy, modesty, and bashfulness. Those are my fetishes. And so not talking about this is really turning me on. Whoops. I seem to have been counterproductive in that moment. I just lost the mood.
The one guy said that he knew it was a bullshit whole scenario when they said that they were doing military testing. The military was looking into tickling as a torture tactic, and he was like, "That's when I knew this was bullshit." But it got me thinking, that probably would be a really effective torture tactic.
Of course, yeah.
I wonder if that's been done before on a military level.
I'd be surprised if it wasn't. Yeah, but I wonder if it's I wonder if it is if it's strong, bad enough. You know what I mean? If it's effective enough. And also, doesn't it sometimes happen when you get tickled enough, it eventually kind of loses? You become sort of desensitized to it as it's happening.
Yeah, but then it comes back.
It's true. It comes in waves.
I felt like watching some of the guys get tickled it looked like they weren't getting tickled anymore, but they were still kind of fake laughing. And it reminded me of when I was young. My mom had like a hypnotist come to her work for some work event, and I got called up on stage, and I was one of the like 30 people on stage getting hypnotized. But with my eyes closed, because he told everybody to close their eyes, I couldn't hear what he was saying. I rely on my eyes a lot to hear, you know? So I wasn't getting hypnotized because his words weren't getting into my brain. So I was just faking it through like 2 rounds of him like weeding people out until he finally realized I was faking it and kicked me off. But that desire to like not like ruin the thing. Like if you weren't getting tickled, you would be like, well, I'm here to get tickled. I should probably pretend I'm getting tickled right now.
Right. You don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. You don't want to hurt a tickler's feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that when he reinvented it, like when he came back as Jane O'Brien after he had already gone to jail for the Terry Tickle stuff. I love that he gave them all matching uniforms. It was very Squid Game-esque, and it looked like it had an Adidas sponsorship. It's like he learned from what did him in the first time.
To try to make it seem more legit. Oh, it must be competitive if they're all wearing the same thing. They're on a team. They're on a tickle team. Tickle cells, that's what they would call them.
Tickle cells. Which is like the most, it's such a paradox of like 2 words that couldn't be further apart in terms of positivity and negativity.
Yeah. And if you're a bit pale, you could have tickle cell anemia.
That was a good one. Got better the more I thought about it.
It's the worst. It was the worst. I can't help myself, and they're the worst. Hey, this brings up the idea of the people that were involved in the tickle cells in Muskegon or whatever it was called. In
Muskegon, Michigan.
Yeah.
One of the highest crime rates in America, and I'd never heard of the city before.
Yeah, I was thinking asking you this about that. That they're like all of them were like seemed to be MMA guys, right?
Yeah.
He was recruiting from the mixed martial arts community, and I thought, how do you feel about that? You know, like they were being exploited. Here's actually, because I was thinking like they're being exploited in that sort of fetishistic way because they needed the money, so they were very easy to exploit. To say, oh, you know, I'll give you $2,000 if you start doing this tickling. Is that really far off from, hey, I'll give you $2,000 if you beat the shit out of this guy? I mean, do you ever feel guilty about watching MMA that it's clearly an exploitation? It really does feel a bit, you know, ancient Roman, like the rich watching the poor beat each other up. I mean, boxing's not far off, but MMA seems to be even worse for that.
Well, I'm not rich, and that's how I feel okay about it. It's the poor watching the poor, and I think that's okay.
Nah, you're not poor enough. You're not
Yeah, I mean, it's a definite concern, and there's no union in the UFC. So, and that's the UFC, which is the biggest MMA league in the world. So when you're looking at these lower tier circuits, like this event that was happening in Muskegon, wouldn't surprise me if these guys are making a couple $100 for a fight. Yeah. So, yes, to answer your question, it is a little problematic, but I mean, they're 2 consenting guys or gals getting in that octagon. So the fact that they both want to be there makes it okay in my mind. And then I watch UFC and I just trust that they're taking care of their fighters. They don't have a union, and there are a lot of fight. Like if you make it big in the UFC, you get paid well, but a lot of the lower kind of ranked people, there are concerns about their compensation. So yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely problematic. And a lot of them, it's like a lot of sports actually, but combat sports, I think more so. People come from troubled backgrounds, so they're a little more susceptible to being hoodwinked, I would suppose, at the prospect of money. Same with these tickle cells, actually. They were like, these guys, actually, there's a great quote this guy said from Muskegon. He said, the tickling's still happening in this town. The money is endless. This tickling empire is way bigger than we ever imagined. Which is such an ominous sentence to say regarding tickling, but there was no industry. It was a dead former industrial town. So like tickling came in and filled that void. It's such a weird statement to say, but it's true.
It is strange, isn't it? It doesn't matter what the industry, if it's jobs, you're not going to come in here and take away our tickling jobs. I don't care, you know. It's
yeah.
Tickling or fracking. Which one do you want?
Yeah, I mean, that guy that was talking badly about Jane O'Brien and the tickling operation in the follow-up documentary, which if anybody has watched Tickled, I would recommend you watch the follow-up documentary, The Tickle King. I liked it as much, if not more. It's a 20-minute little kind of follow-up because they followed him around. David Damato and the other guys from this tickling operation followed them around as they were doing the documentary circuit, and they were harassing them at movies. It was insane to watch. But that MMA fighter recanted everything he said in The Tickle King. He was like,
yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, and it wasn't obvious at all that he was put up to it either for money or threats. The guy,
Yeah.
that smile at the end, all done.
I felt bad for that guy.
Of course, yeah. I gotta hand it to to Dylan, his the other documentarian who was in a handshake lock of Damato
For so long. That handshake lock is so amazing to watch because now, once it goes on over 5 seconds, you're like, whoever pulls out from this handshake is like admitting defeat. You just have to keep holding it now.
I guess. I mean, I almost feel like I can pull out from my if I pull out from a handshake, it's my way of saying, all right, that's enough of that. Thank you. You know?
True.
It's like saying, you know what, I'm taking control. Because otherwise you are controlling the person if you you know, it's like that Trump handshake technique where he pushes as he gives you a handshake. It's like anytime somebody is pulls. That's right.
Yeah.
Sorry, he pulls you, gives you a yank.
That was such a weird thing to watch as he met different foreign leaders, watching them brace for that handshake. Like, how are they going to deal with it?
Yeah. I would go in with a Vaseline coated hand. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
And then now he's got his hand covered in Vaseline. What's he going to do? Like, what's he going to do? He's going to make a big deal? No, I had a lot of lotion on. Whoops, you slipped out.
I don't think anybody has ever reminded me more of Trump than David Damato. Everything he said, the threats of lawsuits, trying to pretend he knew more than people, telling them, oh, you bit off more than you can chew. He's a wealthy son of a New York rich, a New York businessman, a lawyer, but, the elite of New York. The way he talked was so Trumpian. The threats of lawsuits were just so prevalent around, and his vengefulness, like he was very Trumpian.
Absolutely. In fact, that came up in an interview I was reading with David. I always have difficulty with the name Ferrier.
I remember it because that's the name of the street I grew up on in Kitchener.
Well, that's going to be easy for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have an advantage. You have a Ferrier advantage. It's an unfair advantage in my opinion. But there you go. That's 2 for anybody who's got a chalkboard.
Wordplay off the chart.
Yeah. So, he was. This was pre-election where he was saying, it's America's going to have to take a look at it, a good look at itself if they end up voting Trump in. He was saying this in the interview. I was like, well, you know what? They did, and I don't think they did.
Yeah. So you think there's anybody watching this movie? Because, Trump's popularity would often baffle me. He was more charismatic than Damato, but he clearly had flaws that people were willing to overlook. So do you think there was anybody watching Tickled who was seeing David Damato's side of the story? Like, yeah, I get why he did that. He's the victim in this story?
No, I just think that the idea of the bully being able to wield power and hold power.
When they confronted him for the first time, I was tense when I was watching, like when they followed him to the
I wasn't
Starbucks.
sure what he was capable of. Even like I'm watching it with my wife and she's saying, are you sure you're going to want to talk about this guy? And I was like, like he's going to, what is he going to come after us? Because I say what I want. And then I find out he's dead. And I go, no, I'm going to really say what I want.
But the one thing I learned.
I know.
Go ahead.
No, you go. You went. You said it first. You go say first.
Well, when you die, I didn't realize this, but the executor of your will can continue your lawsuits forward. So he still got a lawsuit against his mother-in-law who spoke about him near the end of the movie, which was a really poignant conversation where she said she was scared of him. And he's got a lawsuit for $40 million against her, along with the makers of this documentary, Tickled. And those lawsuits, I don't know about now, but they were still going forward after he died, which gave me an idea. Like, I don't really want to sue anybody, but maybe just for fun, I could throw a couple lawsuits out there right before I passed away, just to see. Maybe my family could, get a few bucks after I'm gone. Maybe it would be a nice parting gift.
Yeah, not a bad idea. Just a little defamation lawsuit on the way out.
Exactly. Yeah.
See ya, fuckers. That that I'm sure he felt quite pleased with himself, knowing that could continue, but it didn't really. I mean, it's, there's another guy who's I mean, he's the guy that maybe I should be concerned about, but there's another guy, Louis something, that's taken over.
Yeah, Louis, I forget the last name, but you're right, it was Louis.
Maybe it's for the best that you forgot the last name.
Yeah, we don't need to draw his ire.
Yeah.
If he's picking up the mantle of David Damato, if he saw that and was like, no, somebody needs to continue this, that's not the guy I want to piss off.
I like it when you use your words. I like that. Oh, he's picking up the mantle and we're drawing his ire. No.
Here's a question for you, Alex. You're 20 years old. You need some money. You go to this seemingly innocuous video shoot. You do some tickling for a couple grand, and then you don't want to. You do a couple more, and then a couple years pass. You don't want to do them anymore. And now, David Damato says no, because he was vengeful as hell. He said no, you're gonna do this. He releases these videos online. He contacts all your employers. He ruins your life. He attempts to ruin your life. My question is, if when you were 23, 3 years had passed, he tried doing all this stuff to you, would a video of you tickling, or getting tickled rather, have concerned you that much? Would you have felt like your life is over when you were 23, or would you have been like, it's not a big deal? Where would you have fallen on the spectrum of how much those threats would have hurt you?
That's a good question, because I'm trying to measure the amount of shame I would have at that age. Mm-hmm. I think I would be pretty embarrassed. See, I always look at stuff through the lens of, does this get in the way of me trying to be a funny guy? Right? If I can pass it off as like it's kind of funny, like, what do I care? I don't have any shame.
I gotcha. So apart from the being funny thing and being a comedian and all that, just 23-year-old Alex, the amount of shame you had, a video comes out of you getting tickled. Are you ashamed if your parents see it? Your friends?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was like freshly deflowered like a year earlier, so I was already like, had certain kind of shame associated with, not feeling attractive, and I think I'd be pretty damn embarrassed.
I would have been pretty embarrassed too. And my family's not even super conservative. So like some of those guys who are from very conservative families, I can see how that would have caused a great deal of stress. Yeah,
that was rough. I mean, it was rough. I felt bad for them. And I felt like I really wanted something to happen to David, which never really did. I mean, he kind of got off, and then he died young, but he didn't really pay for his sins.
No.
Unless, of course, you do believe that he may in the afterlife.
Also,
why don't you answer in the comments as to whether you believe that David Damato pays for his sins in the afterlife? Do you believe in hell, and is he being whipped by the devil's tail? All right, let's continue. That was useless.
He's clearly a deeply troubled man. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if he had put that commitment to tickling videos to something worthwhile. What he could have accomplished.
Yeah, really. I mean, he spent so much of his time and money and energy. I mean, that's a man fueled by hate.
Yeah.
I mean, some of those letters, a letter to the previous casting guy is to the guy's mother talking about her dead son.
Yeah.
Brutal. I mean, he was bitter and evil man.
Asshole. Kept calling the guy like a hairy, horny, hook-nosed. Like every letter would call him hook-nosed. I'm like, damn, he's really fixated. Is that like a Jewish?
Usually it's a Jewish thing.
Derogatory.
Yes,
yeah, I thought so. Yeah, he was an asshole.
Brought that up.
Well, I mean, the flip side is, imagine if he had put all that energy into something even worse than tickling.
Sure.
Pretty innocuous bad thing, like on the scale of terrible thing to do, tickling's at the bottom.
Yeah, he didn't really want to do like full S&M, just tickling. It's a funny, but again, it's the shame aspect.
Yeah.
Interesting. Tickling, it's a funny thing, isn't it?
It is. I didn't realize how dark it could get, but there you go. Next week, we're going to be watching JFK. What's the full title? JFK Revisited, Through the Looking Glass. Just came out from Oliver Stone.
I haven't revisited yet because I haven't heard enough about him. It'll be interesting to see that he does have more to talk about. Oliver Stone, that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he's got a fixation on JFK, but maybe this is his magnum opus on the subject. We shall see.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. That was our look at Tickled. We'll see you next week when we watch JFK Revisited Through the Looking Glass. I'm DJ.
And I am Alex. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
See ya.